911, what is your emergency? Ma'am?
They just stabbed me and my children.
What?
They just stabbed me and my children.
Who did?
Before we dive into the chilling details of the Darlie Routier case, I need your input. This case has haunted people for decades. Some believe she's innocent, while others think she's guilty, and there's no shortage of opinions. But here's the thing. No one really knows the full truth yet. What do you think? Is Darlie Routier guilty?
I'm innocent.
Or is there more to this story than meets the eye? Type guilty or innocent in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Stick with me through this investigation because what you think you know about this case, it might just change in ways you won't expect. But before we begin, I need to warn you. What you're about to see has been kept quiet for a reason. A mother, 2 young boys, a night that destroyed everything. Here's what nobody's talking about. Texas death row, where Darlie Routier has been waiting for over 28 years, something has changed in 2025. Something that makes her story more disturbing than anyone imagined. This is the executioner's pen. I've spent months trying to uncover the truth about what's really happening behind those walls, and what I found. It's worse than anyone could have predicted. But before we go any further, we need to remember why we're here. Devin, 6 years old. Damon, 5 years old. 2 innocent children whose lives were stolen on June 6, 1996. These weren't just victims in a case file. They were sons, brothers, little boys with their whole lives ahead of them. And their family, their father Darren, their surviving brother Drake. They've had to live with this unimaginable loss for nearly 3 decades. So, if you're watching this, I want you to take a moment. Whatever you believe about this case, these 2 boys deserve to be remembered. Type amen in the comments if you're sending prayers to Devin, Damon, and everyone who loved them. Now, here's something I need to be honest with you about. Getting information for this investigation. It's been nearly impossible. As an investigative reporter, I've hit walls at every turn. Prison officials won't talk. Legal documents, heavily redacted sources afraid to speak on record. And that's exactly why I need your help. You see, when you support this channel, when you show that people actually care about uncovering the truth, it gives me leverage. It shows officials that there's public interest, that these stories matter. So, if you want me to keep digging, keep pushing for answers that nobody else is brave enough to find, you know what to do. It's that simple button right there. Because without your support, stories like this stay buried forever. June 6th, 1996. Rowlett, Texas. A 911 call that would change everything. Darlie Routier, 26 years old, called police at 2:31 a.m., screaming that an intruder had attacked her family. When officers arrived, they found a scene of absolute horror. Devin and Damon had been stabbed multiple times. Darlie herself had injuries, a slash across her throat, bruises, cuts on her arms. The prosecution would later say these were self-inflicted. The defense said they proved she fought an intruder. But here's where it gets complicated. Evidence at the scene didn't add up. And this is where public opinion really starts to divide. Some believe the strange details, like the blood-stained sock, point to an intruder, but others argue that the scene was staged. I know many of you are passionate about this case, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do these inconsistencies prove her innocence, or do they paint her as guilty? A sock with blood on it was found 75 meters away from the house, a bread knife in the kitchen, a cut window screen but no fingerprints, no clear signs of forced entry that convinced investigators. The trial in 1997 became a media sensation. Prosecutors painted Darlie as a materialistic mother drowning in debt who saw her children as burdens. They showed the infamous silly string video. Darlie spraying silly string on her sons' graves at what would have been Devin's 7th birthday party. To the jury, this looked like a woman who didn't care, who couldn't possibly be grieving. But here's what they didn't show. The 2-hour prayer service before that video. The tears. The breakdown. February 1997. Guilty of capital murder. Sentenced to death. But was justice truly served that day? Mountain View Unit, Gatesville, Texas. This is where Darlie Routier has lived for 28 years. Not just prison. Death row. In 2025, new information surfaced that changes everything. Darlie's conditions on death row have worsened, but what does that really mean for her case? Some argue this is a result of long-term isolation. Others think it's a sign of guilt. What do you think? If she's innocent, should she be left to suffer like this? Or if she's guilty, does she deserve the punishment she's receiving? Death row for women in Texas is unlike anything you can imagine. Darlie is confined to a small cell, approximately 9 feet, 6 feet for 23 hours a day. 1 hour for recreation alone. No physical contact with visitors. Conversations through glass and phones. But here's what's new in 2025. According to sources I've finally connected with, Darlie's health has severely deteriorated. Years of isolation, the stress of appeals, the weight of what happened, it's taken a visible toll. But it's what's happening around her that's truly disturbing. And before I show you what I'm talking about, I need to know something. Are you still with me? Because what comes next is going to challenge everything you think you know about this case. Look, I see a lot of you watching right now who haven't joined this community yet, and I get it. Maybe you're still deciding if this content is for you. But here's the thing. The algorithm only shows these investigations to people who engage, who watch all the way through, who let YouTube know this matters. So do me a favor, hit that like button. Not for me, but because it tells YouTube that real investigative journalism still matters, that we're not going to let these stories disappear. Now, here's what I discovered that changes everything about Darlie's current situation. In March 2025, there was an incident on death row that was never reported publicly until now. According to my sources, Darlie was threatened by another inmate, someone connected to a prison group that has, let's say, strong opinions about child cases. You see, in prison, there's a hierarchy, and people convicted of crimes against children. They're at the bottom. It doesn't matter if you maintain your innocence. The conviction is enough. Darlie has received multiple threats over the years, but this one in 2025, it escalated. I'm told there was a direct physical confrontation during a rare common area moment. Guards had to intervene. She was moved to an even more isolated section. Here's the question I want you to ask yourselves. If she's innocent, isn't this torture? Or is this what she deserves? There's a massive divide on this case. Some of you feel she's innocent, while others are convinced she's guilty. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Guilty or innocent? Anyways, let's keep this conversation going because in 2025, with everything we know now about forensic science, DNA testing, false confessions, this case looks very different than it did in 1997. First, the crime scene. Multiple experts have now stated that the blood evidence suggests a struggle with an intruder, not self-infliction. The sock found 75 yards away. It had both Darlie's blood and Devon's blood on it. The prosecution claimed she ran it there herself after attacking her children. But think about this. She would have had to stab her children, stab herself in the throat, run 75 yards in the middle of the night to plant a sock, run back, and then call 911, all while bleeding profusely from a neck wound that was millimeters from her carotid artery. A surgeon who reviewed her injuries later said the wound was life-threatening and would have caused significant blood loss. Could she really have done all of that? Then there's the window screen. It had cuts consistent with a knife from the Routier's butcher block. The defense said an intruder cut their way in. The prosecution said Darlie staged it, but there was dust disturbance on the windowsill suggesting something or someone came through. And here's something the jury never heard. There was a fingerprint in blood that didn't match anyone in the house. Not Darlie, not Darren, not the boys. Nobody. It was excluded from trial because it wasn't clear enough for comparison, but it existed. So ask yourself, does doubt exist here? But there's another layer to this that nobody wants to talk about. Mental health. Darlie Routier's defenders have long argued that she suffered from postpartum depression, that she had financial stress, marital problems, and was potentially in a mental health crisis that nobody recognized. We know now in 2025 that postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis are real, serious conditions that can drastically alter someone's mental state. Women have had hallucinations, delusions, complete breaks from reality. Does that excuse what happened to Devin and Damon? Absolutely not. Those boys deserved protection, love, safety. But does it change our understanding of culpability? Should mental illness be a factor in sentencing? Because here's the thing. If Darlie was suffering from a severe mental health crisis that night, and if she did do this, should she be executed, or should she spend life in prison with treatment? Texas doesn't care about that distinction. Guilty is guilty, but is that justice, or is that revenge? I want to know what you think. And I'm asking this seriously, not for engagement, but because this question matters. Drop a comment right now with one word: guilty or innocent. Based on everything you've heard so far, what do you believe? And while you're down there, scroll through other comments. See what other people think. Because this case, it divides everyone. And maybe reading different perspectives will change your mind. Or maybe it'll strengthen what you already believe. Go ahead. I'll wait. Drop that comment. Guilty or innocent? Now, we need to talk about the people living with this every single day. The people who can't escape it, no matter how much time passes. Darren Routier, Darlie's husband at the time, has lived in his own prison since 1996. He's maintained his belief in Darlie's innocence. He's fought for her appeals. He's raised their surviving son, Drake, who was an infant when this happened. Drake is now 29 years old. He grew up without his mother, without his brothers, with the weight of this case defining his entire life. He believes in his mother's innocence and has spoken publicly about the pain of knowing she's on death row. But what about Devin and Damon's extended family? What about their grandparents, aunts, uncles, people who lost those boys and believe Darlie took them away? There are family members who want Darlie executed, who believe every day she lives is an insult to Devin and Damon's memory, who see her appeals as a mockery of justice. So who do we listen to? The husband who says she's innocent, the son who needs his mother, or the relatives who demand justice for 2 murdered children? There is no easy answer. For 28 years, Darlie Routier's legal team has been fighting appeals, motions, DNA testing requests, everything they can do to overturn her conviction or at least spare her life. In 2025, her case is still in limbo. Recent DNA testing has been approved on several items from the crime scene, including that unidentified fingerprint and additional biological evidence that wasn't tested in 1997. Modern DNA technology can detect profiles from microscopic amounts of material that were impossible to test in the 90s. If there's unknown DNA at that crime scene, DNA that doesn't match the family, that could be the evidence that finally proves Darlie's claim of an intruder. But here's the catch. Texas is one of the fastest executing states in America. They don't like long appeals, they don't like delays. And with the current political climate in 2025, there's pressure to start moving death row cases through the system more quickly, which means Darlie's time might be running out, whether she's innocent or not. So let me ask you something that's been keeping me up at night since I started this investigation. What if we're wrong? What if the state of Texas executes Darlie Routier and 5 years later DNA evidence proves an intruder was in that house? What if we take a potentially innocent woman's life? Or what if she's guilty? What if she did take the lives of her own children? And we're wasting resources, time, and energy on appeals for someone who deserves exactly what's coming. This is the impossible balance of capital punishment. We want justice for victims. We want closure for families. But we also want to be absolutely certain that we're not becoming what we claim to hate. We're not becoming the ones taking innocent life. Since 1973, over 190 people have been exonerated from death row in America. 190 people who were sentenced to die for crimes they didn't commit. Some came within days, Hours of execution before evidence proved their innocence. Is Darlie Routier one of them, or is she exactly where she belongs? All right, we're almost at the end, but I need to leave you with something to think about. Actually, I need you to do something for me. This case, this investigation, it's bigger than just Darlie Routier. It's about how our justice system works. It's about whether we trust forensic science, jury decisions, and capital punishment. So here's what I want you to do. After you finish this video, I want you to talk to someone about it. Your family, your friends, someone in your life. Tell them about this case. Ask them what they think. Because here's the secret. These conversations are how we actually create change. Not by yelling online, but by making people think, by challenging beliefs, by asking hard questions. And if you do that, if you share this video, if you talk about it, if you engage with this content, you're telling me that this work matters, that investigative journalism isn't dead, that the truth still has value. So, help me out. Share this. Tag someone who needs to see it. Let's get people talking. But before you go, there's one more thing I haven't told you. One piece of information that I've been holding back until now. In preparing this investigation, I reached out to multiple people connected to this case. Lawyers, experts, former jurors, journalists who covered the trial, and I got a response that I wasn't expecting. Someone who was directly involved in the original investigation reached out to me privately. They told me that there's information, evidence that was never presented at trial, information that they believe could change everything. But they're afraid to go public, afraid of retaliation, professional consequences, legal implications. They'll only share it if enough people show that they actually care about the truth. So if this video reaches certain thresholds, if enough of you watch, share, engage, I'll be able to bring you that information in a follow-up investigation. Information that could finally answer the question, what really happened that night in 1996? The power to uncover that truth, it's in your hands now. Darlie Routier sits in a cell tonight, just like she has for 10,220 nights before this one. She's either an innocent woman being tortured by a system that failed her, or a guilty woman facing the consequences of the most unthinkable crime. Devin and Damon Routier never got to grow up, never got to graduate, fall in love, have families of their own. Their lives ended at 6 and 5 years old in a pool of blood on their living room floor. Somebody is responsible for that. Somebody took those boys from this world. The question we're left with is, has justice been served, or is the real truth still buried, waiting to be found? This is the executioner's pen, and I won't stop investigating until we know for certain. Thanks for watching. Thanks for caring. And remember, the truth is worth fighting for, even when it's painful. Subscribe if you want more investigations like this. Until next time, stay curious.